in the quiet suburbs of a sun-drenched American neighborhood where manicured lawns hid simmering tensions, Henry, a dedicated black police officer, finally unpacked the last box in his new home. The air buzzed with excitement as he prepared for his housewarming gathering, a simple celebration of hard-earned milestones. But across the street, Karen, the self-appointed HOA guardian with her clipboard and sharp eyes, watched the arrivals with growing suspicion. Little did she know, her impulsive call to 911 about suspicious activity would unravel in the most humiliating way, exposing the ugly undercurrents of prejudice that still lingered in places like this. As the evening unfolded, the twist would leave her frozen in disbelief, surrounded by the very authority she had summoned. Henry had always dreamed of owning a home in a peaceful community, a place where he could escape the chaos of his demanding job on the force. After years of saving and navigating the hurdles that came with being a black man in law enforcement, he closed on a modest two-story house in Elmwood Estates, a gated subdivision known for its strict HOA rules and predominantly white residents. The neighborhood gleamed with uniformity. White picket fences, identical mailboxes, and an unspoken code of conformity that Henry sensed from the start. On moving day, he noticed Karen for the first time. She was a middle-aged woman with perfectly coiffed hair and a perpetual frown, patrolling the streets like a sentinel. She introduced herself curtly through a forced smile, handing him a thick binder of HOA guidelines. "We keep things orderly here," she said in his mind's echo, though no words were exchanged. Henry nodded politely, focusing instead on settling in. He furnished the living room with warm tones, hung family photos on the walls, and planned a low-key housewarming to mark the occasion. Invitations went out to his closest circle, fellow officers from the department, old friends from the academy, and a few neighbors he hoped to befriend. The guest list reflected his life, diverse, resilient, and bonded by shared experiences in a world that often viewed them through a lens of suspicion. As the day approached, Henry marinated meats for the grill, arranged seating in the backyard, and imagined laughter filling the air. Unbeknownst to him, Karen's watchful gaze had already fixated on the unfamiliar cars pulling up, her assumptions fueled by years of unchecked biases. The setup was perfect for a storm, one where everyday joy clashed with deep-seated fears. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the cul-de-sac, Henry's house began to fill with the hum of arrival. Guests trickled in, carrying covered dishes and bottles of soda, pure, their casual attire blending seamlessly with the relaxed vibe. Henry moved through the rooms with ease, greeting each person with a firm handshake and a genuine warmth that spoke of his character. The backyard transformed into a lively space, with smoke rising from the grill and music playing softly in the background. Nothing extravagant, just a gathering of people unwinding after long shifts. Karen, from her vantage point behind lace curtains, observed it all with mounting unease. She noted the skin tones that didn't match the neighborhood's usual palette, the laughter that seemed too loud to her ears, and the sheer number of attendees spilling onto the lawn. In her mind, this wasn't a celebration. It was an intrusion, a disruption to the pristine order she fiercely protected. Her pulse quickened as she recalled stories she'd heard, whispers of those people bringing trouble. Without a second thought, she reached for her phone, her fingers dialing 911 with practiced efficiency. She reported suspicious behavior, emphasizing the unusual crowd and potential for unrest, her voice laced with urgency that masked her true motivations. Meanwhile, Henry remained oblivious, circulating among his guests. Many were off-duty officers, their badges tucked away, sharing stories of the precinct's latest cases over plates of food. The atmosphere grew warmer, bonds strengthening under the evening sky. But tension brewed outside. Patrol cars approached silently, lights off, to avoid alerting the suspects. Karen stepped out onto her porch, arms crossed, anticipating vindication. She imagined the scene. Authorities dispersing the group, restoring peace, and perhaps even earning her a nod of thanks from the board. Her prejudice painted Henry not as a homeowner, but as an outsider, his success a threat to the status quo. As minutes ticked by, the emotional stakes heightened, Henry's joy on one side, Karen's bigotry on the other, colliding in slow motion. The air thickened with unspoken injustice, a reminder of how racial biases could turn mundane moments into battlegrounds. Henry's achievements, rising through the ranks despite systemic barriers, were overshadowed by Karen's snap judgment. She paced her driveway, phone still in hand, her face flushed with self-righteous indignation. Inside, the party continued, laughter echoing like a defiant melody against the encroaching shadows of discrimination. The patrol cars pulled up quietly, their doors opening to reveal two officers stepping out with measured caution. Karen hurried over, pointing emphatically toward Henry's house, her gestures urgent and accusatory. She expected swift action, a confirmation of her fears. But as the officers approached the backyard gate, their expressions shifted from professional detachment to recognition and surprise. Henry turned at the sound of footsteps, his brow furrowing briefly before breaking into a broad smile. The arriving officers were his colleagues, veterans from the same department, familiar faces from roll calls and late-night shifts. They exchanged nods, the tension evaporating as they joined the gathering, blending in seamlessly with the crowd. Karen, watching from afar, froze in place, her world tilting on its axis. The suspicious crowd she had reported was, in fact, a room full of law enforcement professionals, many of whom now turned their gaze toward her. The irony hit like a thunderclap. Karen's call, born from racial profiling, had summoned the very people who embodied the authority she sought to wield. Whispers rippled through the party as guests pieced together the intrusion, their amusement mixed with a deeper undercurrent of frustration. Henry, ever composed, approached the officers with calm assurance, explaining the mix-up without a hint of anger. But the damage was palpable. Karen's facade cracked, her authority undermined in an instant. She retreated to her porch, the weight of her actions pressing down as the gathering resumed with renewed energy. This peak of confrontation laid bare the raw nerve of racism, where a simple party became a mirror reflecting societal flaws. In the aftermath, the evening wound down not with disruption, but with quiet resolve. The officers lingered briefly, sharing a few laughs before departing, their presence a silent rebuke to Karen's meddling. Henry bid his guests farewell, the warmth of the night unbroken despite the shadow cast over it. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood, whispers turning into discussions at the next HOA meeting, where Karen's overreach was quietly noted, though no formal apology came. Henry chose not to pursue escalation, focusing instead on building bridges, inviting neighbors over in the weeks that followed, turning suspicion into familiarity. Karen, humbled by the backlash, retreated into silence, her clipboard gathering dust. The incident became a catalyst, sparking conversations about inclusivity in the community, with some residents pushing for diversity training within the HOA. This story, inspired by countless real accounts of racial bias in everyday spaces, underscores how prejudice can backfire spectacularly. It reminds us that progress demands vigilance against subtle injustices that erode trust and humanity. What if one unfounded call could dismantle years of division? Reflect on that and share your thoughts. Has something similar happened in your world?